This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Markport.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you from the North Park Building here at Academy Square in downtown Seneca Falls. Number 57 on deck tonight. Excited to have all of you along for the ride this evening as we work through our hour together. Mike Ferstl going to be joining us here momentarily from the warm confines of Calgary, Alberta. Going to be talking with him a little bit about his career as a super gas and super comp racer, and he's also got an announcement to share with us. I'm sure Jason is chomping at the bit along those lines. He's already had the inside tip, and
right.
I guess the search is on for a trailer so that you can take the Corvette up, right?
Well, I don't need a trailer as much as, I guess, just a buddy to go with me on a road trip. And then, once we get there, we're going to need accommodations. So
right.
maybe I'll try and find a sponsor to put us up at a ritzy hotel or something.
One thing at a time, I suppose, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, we have Mike Ferstl waiting in the wings here. I'm going to try and get him on. It looks like it might be breaking up a little bit on us, so we'll see.
Of course, as soon
how
as we
things
go live.
there. Just as soon, yeah it never fails.
Yeah.
But Mike should be on with us now. Mike, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing okay. So where do you want to go first? Do you want to talk about what you've done in racing, or do you want to talk about your announcement first? Which way you want to go with this? Because the announcement is very cool.
Well, let's break the ice and go with the announcement. A partner and myself and a whole team of racers that I get together with every Wednesday night for Wings. We've been talking about doing this for a while. It's our winters out west here in Calgary are generally about 6 or 7 months. It seems like most of the year is winter. And I happen to be in the business. I'm in landscaping, so I have an opportunity in the wintertime because, depending on what's happening with snow, to do some extracurricular activities. Besides getting the car ready for the season, we have a chance to do some planning. So we got together and we put our heads together and we started thinking, what will be a great way to sort of break up the winter here in the middle of the long winters we have here in Calgary and most of Alberta. It was minus 40 the other day, so it's a great way to break the ice. So we decided to put our first annual Canadian Practice Tree Nationals. And what it's going to be is it's going to be taking place on March 22nd and 23rd in Red Deer, Alberta, which is halfway between Edmonton and Calgary. There's a number 2 highway that you have to travel up. So right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the province, we're going to host a Practice Tree Nationals. And we're expecting well in excess of 200 people.
Wow.
We're going to have a warm-up party on Friday night from 7 to 10. It's a great way for the guys to get together and the gals get together to have a drink, catch up on what they haven't been able to talk about throughout the course of the winter. Our season ended back in September, so we do have a long off season. So lots of catching up to do, a few drinks, some registration going on, and then people will be able to stay at the hotel. The next morning on site at 9 o'clock, the gates open. We'll be open for registration, entries, and then at 10 o'clock we're going live with 2 time trials for all entries. We're expecting, I would say, a lot of guys are going to double up. We're going to have multiple entries at the practice tree race, and they'll have a chance at 2 hits at the tree. Noon, we have opening ceremonies, 15 minutes basically to introduce all our sponsors, and we've got lots of them for this event. And this has all come together in a matter of weeks. I'm amazed at the amount of people that have jumped on board with us. Kyle Seipel, Peter Biondo, Luke Bagacki, VP Fuels, Hoosier, Comp Cams, Race Pack. We've got a number of sponsors, and a lot of the local guys have jumped on board with some of their businesses to help us out. 12:15 we start the race, and we basically have 5 races with 2 national event LED trees on site where we'll be able to move things along fairly quickly. We're going to be doing Facebook Live from the event, and hopefully by 5 or 6 o'clock we'll be wrapped up and have the pictures and the big checks handed out and crown some winners. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
Sounds cool.
It sounds very cool, and I mean, obviously, this was very well planned. And I guess the thing that's I guess amazing to me, every time I've not to say there hasn't been a practice tree event like this in the past, but generally all the times I've ever seen a practice tree thing like this in general around here, it's always like, hey, yeah, we're going to show up at this bar, and we're going to do a gambler's race practice tree thing, and show up at 7, and a couple of hits, and we'll get it done. I mean, was it your intention from the very beginning to make it really such a grandiose affair?
Yeah. Well, if you know me personally, I'm a very detail-oriented individual. Always have been. I was like that throughout my corporate life, working in the hospitality industry. And I've got a great team of people. I've got the Calgary Raceway announcer, who's my good friend, Romad, who's going to be assisting me. I've got a number of key people that have been very successful in business, who have joined us on the team. And I've got a lot of hands-on individuals who are now in the midst of putting together the actual simulators where they're going to be able to sit down on a racing seat with a steering wheel and a trans brake.
Wow.
We have those going together. We're going to have 2 sets of those. And, this is, like I said, this has come together in a matter of, I would say, 3 or 4 weeks.
This, I will say, though, I really feel like, I think you just kind of tipped me off as to, why it's to the, let's call it the extreme that it is. So I didn't realize that you had a background in hospitality.
Pardon me?
So I didn't realize that you have a background in hospitality.
Yeah, I worked for 2 of the biggest players I would say, in the quick service side.
Yeah.
Spent 16 years with McDonald's Restaurants of Canada. I worked in the stores as I was going through high school and college, and then worked with them corporately in their downtown head office in Toronto.
Yep.
So after 17 years of being with McDonald's and the Golden Arches, and having had great mentors that spent a lot of time with myself, took a vested interest in my career development. I wanted to go out on my own, and one of the thoughts that I had was to get involved somehow in the automotive industry. Well, that was very short-lived. I worked for Performance Improvements, actually Ted Barnes sponsored.
Okay, yeah.
For a period of time in both Toronto at their main Queensway store in Etobicoke, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto.
Yep.
And then I moved up to Brampton and spent some time up there. But that was very short-lived, and I got back into the hospitality industry again, and I joined Tim Hortons. And with Tim Hortons, I learned an awful lot about the franchising business. As you know, I'm sure you've seen Tim Hortons down your way.
No, not at all. We don't have any.
Well, they've been very successful in their own right, but it's actually what brought me west was Tim Hortons, and we were relocated to Calgary, and I was responsible for a team of operations specialists that worked in the stores with the owners, and I used to ride with them on a regular basis, and we were responsible from Winnipeg, Manitoba, right to the west coast on Vancouver Island. So it was a huge area, and that became very short-lived because I realized how big a country Canada really was. So a lot of my learnings, the best practices that I've gained over the years, the low-hanging fruit, all the things that have helped me personally in my business today came from the hospitality industry.
Yeah. Well, and it really shows because you're used to planning and preparation, and I have to say, for your first time doing something like this, it's really pretty incredible the detail that you've gone in to arrange something like this.
Well, having seen well over 100 national events, and I would say 50 divisionals in my time over the years as a participant, as a spectator, I have a pretty good feel for what the spectators want to see,
yep,
and what racers want to see. I realized that one of the things you have to have partners in the business, and you've got to have partners on board. And so we've been able to connect with an awful lot of good people. Right now, I just recently joined. This is Dragster Racing Elite, and cannot believe the structure and the detail work that both Luke Bagacki and Kevin Brannon have done with that entire venture. Such a detailed-oriented a venture that they've shared with the racers. So one of the things that I saw was the importance of practicing on the tree.
Yep.
And the other thing, I was able to connect with Don O'Neill, who's a Division III top sportsman racer.
Mm-hmm.
He signed a deal with NGK Spark Plugs. Last year he was sponsored by VP Fuels, and they hosted their 5th annual Practice Tree Challenge in Indianapolis on January the 19th.
Yeah.
And in the middle of a snowstorm, they had guys fly in from 5 different states.
Wow.
Texas, Alabama, Ohio, Indy, Kentucky, Tennessee, from all over. And so I had a chance to touch base with Don and grab some great ideas and not try to copy what he was doing, but certainly learn some of the good things that they had done and asked about some of the things that were not working.
Right.
Although he wouldn't reveal any of those things, I truly understand what the racers want to see when they come. They want to be entertained, and in the middle of the wintertime, that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, they certainly want to be entertained, and I will say that as well as I do that not that when you go to a big race that you don't want to win, because everybody wants to win, but part of the experience is hanging out with your buddies, and in the evenings once racing activities have wound up, basically sitting around and shooting the breeze and having a couple of cocktails, and like I said, that's all part of the entertainment aspect of it, right? It's hanging out with your buddies. It's not just going there to be cutthroat competitors and try and win the race.
Absolutely, yeah. I found that drag racing is one of those activities where you actually I enjoy the people side of it. More so than I do hanging underneath the car and changing trannies in the middle of the night, doing all-nighter to get back to the track. I've been through that before. I don't want to go through that again. But it's just part of the it's part of the beast. Drag racing is an awful lot of preparation. If you ever listen to Dan Fletcher talk about prep, and there's a guy that prepares his entries better than anybody else out there, because that's the reason why he's won over 100 national events.
That's a good reason for sure. In general, not to say that things don't happen, but in general, Dan Fletcher doesn't go up to the line for his race and break.
Right.
No, and I've seen Dan race enough at the national level and at the divisional level. In fact, I was at the Keystones in 1994 when he runnered up. He missed running the race in Superstock on Monday morning by 1 thou. He broke out by 1 thou, and I'll never forget that, because that was the first time that I'd seen Dan at the national stage.
Yeah.
He'd come to Cayuga many times and was bracket racing. Same thing at St. Thomas in London. I'd seen him there at some of the big buck bracket races. But when he started winning and getting into the finals at the national event level, it was something to see. So I look up to a guy like that can go to the races and prepare his entries. And it's the same way that we're handling our practice tree nationals. Is when we go to the races, when we go to the events, everything will be paid for in advance, and the purses will be laid out so that all of our customers, our clients that show up that day, are going to have a great time.
Yeah. Well, knowing what drag racers like. So good pit spots, guaranteed money. So I'm guessing, maybe a cocktail or two. So I'm guessing this is going to be a dry event at a crappy hotel or motel someplace, and there's going to be no guaranteed money, right?
Exactly.
I would say now the facility that you're having the event at, where is it exactly? It's in Red Deer, Alberta. Is that what you said?
It's in Red Deer, Alberta, just off the highway. It's actually in the middle of town. It's a fairly large hotel. We blocked off 50 rooms. All the racers that will be staying there, if they can use the practice tree term, use the phrase, and they will get a special rate at $89. The rooms normally go for $124. So they're saving, $25, $30 right off the bat.
Yeah.
We've made sure of that. So that Friday night when they show up and they have no one's going to have to drive. They don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
They're on site. They can go from the private bar that we have been given to host this group. I'm expecting 150 people on Saturday or on Friday night. They won't have to go anywhere. They'll just go right up to the rooms or continue partying or doing whatever they want, right?
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, and then the way we have the room laid out is the next day it's on the main level. It's a fairly large room. We're going to have the 2 trees set up in advance. When they walk in, they'll see them. We'll have them running in simulation mode. We're going to have an area where we're going to have like staging, like the staging lanes, and then there'll be a pit area where everyone can sit. They can have a couple of cocktails. Spectators get in for $5. There's pre-entries that we have up until March the 8th where everyone will be able to save $10. When they get to the gate, they pay full pop. So they're going to have to pay $10 more. And the big race that we have, the Million, right now, we're almost close to filling the first 32 spots. It's $100 a pop. I've almost filled that race. It looks like we're going to be going out to Kyle and Peter and looking for another $1 million entry to expand it another 32 cars.
Wow.
What a problem.
So you're already giving away 2 entries, right?
That's correct. So the winners of that, the winner and the runner-up, will more than likely end up with both getting entries to the $1 million race in April of 2019 at the Sparko Spring Fling on April the 20th.
I mean, quite honestly, that's almost enough justification to go on its own, right?
Yeah.
And
that's one of the reasons why we're driving people in. Now, a lot of the guys that have entered the Million are also running. We have other races. We have what's called top bulb, then we have bottom bulb, then we have 2 memorial races. We lost 2 racers recently. An alcohol funny car team owner, Jeff Goodwin. That race is being put on. It's a Jeff Goodwin Memorial Race being put on by Twister Pilings, which is another local business. They run with us, Trent Michaud and his family. They run with us in Top Eliminator Edmonton. So, I know all these guys, and Trent came forth and said, listen, I knew Jeff really well. I'd like to sponsor that event. So he climbed on board for that. And then we have another memorial race, which my company, Amber Property Maintenance, my landscaping and snow removal company, is going to be sponsoring. We lost a local racer here in Calgary to blood cancer just before Christmas. So we want to remember Jerry. I knew Jerry intimately, and he was a part of when I was president of the Calgary Drag Racing Association, when I first came out to Calgary in the early 2000s, 2000 and 2001, Jerry played a large role in providing us a lot of good feedback on how to improve our club. And we were able to take a club that had 30, 35 members and drive 150 members in a matter of 2 years.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, yeah. Hopefully, now those 2 races, those memorial races, what are the victors going to go home with those races?
There's going to be a cash purse payout for those.
Okay.
But I also have one of the things that I learned from attending Kyle and Peter's Sparko Spring Fling in Vegas is one of the things that they do is they give a lot of round prizes.
Yep.
So every round, when you come up to the burnout box, they have a sign that says, "Oh, we're going to give away a set of Hoosier tires." So we have that. We're going to give away a second round. We're going to give away the first Perfect Light is going to win a race pack system. We've got that. And so we're going to be doing an awful lot of that in addition to the purses to reward the racers, and that is another incentive to show up is they can walk away with lots of goodies that they can use on their vehicles.
You look like you were going to say something.
I'm still trying to process all of it. I mean, when you think about what, the purse breakdown and then all the individual round prizes and stuff like that, you could be somebody who got on a hot roll could have a really good day.
Oh yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Oh yeah. Now that's now I have another prize for top bulb. We are giving away another Sparko Spring Fling prize pack, and what this is Kyle and Peter always have 4-day events. So the event actually starts on Wednesday, goes Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Friday is always the million. But they have 3 other races, and those 3 races pay out $30K. We are giving away the top bulb winner of that race will win an entry, $675 US. That's what it's equivalent to for the 3 30K races in Vegas this year.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Golly.
I mean, even if you can't make it for some reason, I guarantee you'll be able to sell that for $500. Even if you if you can't make the race, right?
Is that prize transferable?
Well,
is that prize transferable? That's a good question.
Is that prize transferable?
Yeah, we've seen that happen before. So I can tell you right now that if someone wins one of those event prizes from the Sparko Spring Fling, that it'll easily be sold for full pop.
Yeah. For
whatever it's worth, because we have quite a group and a contingent that goes down to Vegas every year for this race. And in fact, we have an Alberta contingent. One year, I can remember when I first went in 2016, we had almost 25 guys down there.
Wow, really?
Yeah, from Alberta.
What's the? What's the tow from?
What's the day and a half towing?
What's the tow from Alberta to Las Vegas?
Pardon me?
What's the tow from Alberta to Las Vegas?
It's about a day and a half. It's about 21 hours total from Calgary. So Edmonton's another 3 hours. So it'd be 24 hours from Edmonton.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we get guys, I guess they just started racing again now in Florida last week or something like that, I think. So, we get guys from up here that go down in the spring. Well, let's call it the spring. It's still winter, obviously, around here. But usually don't get that many guys. So to get that many guys from one local area to say, hey, let's have a convoy down to a race 21 hours away, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, one of the things you get used to living out in the Northwest is that there are no close tracks. Just to give you an idea, Edmonton's our closest from Calgary. It's 3 hours away. Then we have Medicine Hat, that's about 3 hours the other way, south. They have a national open. But if we go to Mission, BC, where they used to set a lot of records in Division 6, it's one of the second race on the Division 6 schedule now.
Yeah.
It's 12 hours to get there. It's 14 hours to get to Seattle. It used to be 8 hours to get to Billings, Montana. Boise is another 14 hours. None of the races here are close. Everything's spread out.
I know that we had Jeff Jackson on the show a few weeks ago, and he's in the Washington, Oregon area, and he has intimated to me previously that when it comes to going to races, it's like, all right, he's got his one race basically in his backyard. I guess it's Woodburn, that's 2 hours away, and it's like after that you're 6 hours plus, and it's like one race is 6 hours, and everything else on top of that's 12 plus. And I sit here and cry about the fact that
you got to tow 45 minutes.
Well,
you guys got to drive to Lancaster, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've heard. Have you heard anything about what's going on at Lancaster, Mike?
I certainly have. Listen. You know what? I keep in touch with what's going on. I talk to my cousin all the time. I talk to Andrew Sturck. I talk to Ted Barnes through Facebook. I've been talking to Billy Lieber recently an awful lot. So I've kept in touch with my buddies back east.
Yeah.
I remember when Billy's got a thing on Facebook this week. He's got all his cars painted in red now. Well, his original Chevy too, when he first got it, was painted red.
Right.
So I remember that. I can remember many Friday nights where we used to spend hanging on the top end at Lancaster, watching what was going on.
Yeah.
It was Lancaster. I've truly missed going to Lancaster because it was an event. You know, you'd show up there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They open up the gates. Within an hour, you're racing. 2 times per hours before 7. You're on track for the first round at 7:30. You're done the race by 11 o'clock.
Right.
And, you know, the stands were always full. That's one thing that really amazed me about the place. So when I heard that the track may close, that, you know, you guys may not have a facility there, I thought, geez, that's what a shame to hear that. I understand Paul Cambria has put some money up, but there's another portion that needs to be raised to be able to try and save the track, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's almost, not completely, because not that you wouldn't get people to go back, but it's almost becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy now, too, because what's happened is that now the track is for sale, and Gordon Regier has said that he is not going to run any races as long as he owns the track. Guys have basically said, okay, well, I need to make my racing plans for 2019, and I guess those don't involve Lancaster. So I know that there's been a whole bunch that have already been buying pit spots at Empire, and looking, all right, this year I'm going to travel, I guess. And again, not that you wouldn't get people to go back, but even if someone...
You've heard it. You've heard it.
Oh, yeah, even if somebody buys a track right now, right? I mean, the numbers are not going to be as good in 2019 because people have made alternative plans.
Well, if somebody comes in and buys the track now anyway... and they don't carry some sort of pedigree in drag racing otherwise. Let's say somebody just wants to, maybe a racer, decides that they've got the backing and I want to go run a racetrack. I think I can do this.
Yep.
You don't have that pedigree, and you're gonna hurt for a year or two before you establish that what you're doing is something that people are going to buy into.
Yep.
And especially if those pit passes and those pit spots have already been reserved elsewhere, you're not going to get that money back.
Right.
So you might better run that year. And then make the adjustment as needed. And if somebody does come in along the lines of your self-fulfilling prophecy thing, if somebody does come in, the first hint that it's not going smooth as glass, those guys aren't coming back.
Right.
Because it's not what it was. It's easy to remember the great times.
Right.
Especially when all of the great times of the past regime.
Yeah. And I have to say that if you look at the tracks that have been successful, let's call it from a sportsman racing standpoint, those are the tracks that are generally run by guys who have been sportsman racers themselves. If you have no experience being a racer and being at the track and understanding what it is that the racers want to show up, you're not going to offer that to the racers.
What was it day one? Did it take a period of time before the faith was invested in that?
Usually what happens is, I will say that Empire is kind of a special, even Empire. Though Jerry Scatia bought the track and was able to immediately put some money into it, Jerry Scatia is not a billionaire, so it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to come in and immediately redo the whole thing, right? He did some fairly large improvements in the first year. But from there, it was, hey, you know what, we're going to take basically the money that we make and we're going to put it back into the track. And what we've seen is continual improvements in the track year after year. And that just really excites people. On the flip side of that, you have Lancaster, which barely has put 2 pennies into the track over the course of the last 25 years. And people go there because it's convenient, and people go there because their friends are there and because of the history they have there. Mm-hmm. They don't go there because of the great amenities that they get at Lancaster. But it was a really special place, and it would be a real shame. I have to tell you, there's nothing like watching a drag race at Lancaster. That on the grandstands are literally right next to the track. And when they have
next to the track.
Right next to the track. Yeah, if you get out of the groove, you're basically hitting the wall that separates you from the grandstands that are right there. If you get the fuel cars there, if you ever want to see a fuel car, a funny car, or dragster, if they have them at Lancaster, that's the place to see them, because you'll never get closer to a fuel car going down a track than Lancaster. It's incredible. But it's just been a great place to watch, and unfortunately, it's hard for me to say, Mike, just because my particular circumstances changed significantly. But it was really a special time at Lancaster, 25, 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. You look at the racers that are still competing today. Mike Janis, he just won the Pro Mod World Championship, right? I remember when Mike was, he used to run a modified car, right?
Yep.
At the time. So it's nice to see Mike. Jim Audie, Jim was a hero of mine. I don't know how many times he put my uncle and myself on the trailer. I mean, I was on a first name basis at the draw booth with his crew chief. That's how often that Jim used to run all over us.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter. It wasn't just us. It was everybody, right?
Right.
But all of those guys, Mike and Jim, used to run at Lancaster, and that was the place to go to see those guys, right?
Yeah.
They'd come to Cayuga and they'd travel, and Lancaster had such a feel for it on a Friday night. Every time I used to go there, it was like, wow, you know what? It's a great place to be because there's so much going on, and there's so many racers there. And you know, the other thing I liked about it was 8th mile.
Yep.
Everything happened so quick there.
Yep.
And the other thing is, you can run an 8th mile show a lot quicker than you can a quarter-mile show.
Sure.
Right? So when I go run the 8th mile at the Sparkle Spring Fling, I always look forward to it every year because I love racing the 8th mile, because you really have to be on your game to be able to win around there.
Now, is the majority of the racing at Edmonton? And so the two tracks that you race at typically are Edmonton and Calgary. Are those the two?
No, Calgary's now closed. When I moved here, I had a track, can you believe it or not, that was 10 minutes away from home. It was one of the nicest things. They had a beautiful track here with a road course, and we used to race on the straightaway of the road course. It was right in front of the grandstands. Yeah. They also had an oval there where they had, and it was paved. It's a paved oval where they had stock car racing and the Legends cars, but they had people on the road course. So there was always something from May to the end of September every year. There was something going on at this facility.
Yeah.
However, when I arrived out here, they had their heyday when they first opened that track in '85. It closed in 2011. I arrived in 2000 when I started racing there on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
And by that time, they were on the downward slide. The track owner that actually lives in my neighborhood, his family had it, and he was given the property as a bit of a hobby. He was a road course racer.
Okay.
Drag racer. The road course guys seem to get. They also have motorcycle racing on there.
Yeah.
He seemed to always get first cut at the track.
Yeah.
But the fact that we had a track 10 minutes away from home was phenomenal. And then the city decided that they were going to pull the 25-year lease at 18 years because he wasn't creating the tax revenue for the city to be happy with it.
Okay.
And then they built a ring road right through the pit area.
I was going to ask if the property was still there, or I was hoping that you weren't going to say that, or that they turned it into condos. But that's it. That track's done.
Yeah, it's closed, and it not only has the ring road on it. They built the biggest composting plant in Western Canada, right here in Calgary, right on the race facilities. So now, when you pass by it, and we pass by it on the ring road, you can see it. There is a huge building on there where they basically bring in all the compost from the entire city of Calgary, which is about $1.25 million.
Yeah.
And they compost that product. They burn it. No, they actually don't. They heat it up, is what they bake it. And then what they do is they give away the product to the city of Calgary residents. We basically pay for it in our taxes.
Oh, no kidding.
But it's now a money-making compost plant for the city.
Unlike racetracks, which cannot be money makers at times, for sure. But there are some good examples. I mean, Norwalk's a great example of a track that small-time owner that listened to racers and put together a great program for people, right? So it can work for sure.
Yeah, and I miss Norwalk big time. I mean, I used to go there, and I was always amazed that people were wearing uniforms.
Right.
And they also had a customer service desk and a customer service agreement that if you weren't happy, they'd refund your money.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
That, I would say, that kind of attitude is definitely somewhat foreign to this area. Not to say you won't get your money back, but you won't get your money back, no questions asked in general.
Right. Once they have it, you could be going through a rain delay and you won't see it for another 9 months, right?
Yeah. And I will say that's one thing again.
I've run into too many track owners over the years that had no idea what customer service was.
Yeah. I have to say, it's one thing that Jerry Scacia, the owner of Empire, is really good about, is that, again, being a racer himself, he really understands, and I've really seen him bend over backwards for racers. But yeah, again, to keep them happy. I mean, I know for us with the West New York Super Auto Association, if somebody breaks before first round, as long as you come to me and you tell me that, hey, I broke before first round, I'm going to give you your money back. And it's not because I don't want one more entry fee, but it's just because of the fact that, hey, I'm a racer too. I know that happens, and it stinks, the fact that you've paid your entry fee and now you can't race. I mean, that's adding insult to injury, right?
Right. No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that's going on.
Now, so we've talked about the first practice tree race. Is there another practice tree race?
There is.
Is it too early to talk? Is it too early to talk about that one?
I am, and I want to talk about it because it may involve some folks that may be watching this podcast down the road here in the next couple of weeks, or the broadcast. And it's going to involve the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. I used to live in Oakville myself, so I know the area, but I've reached out to a couple of key people that are racers in Ontario, and I said, hey, listen, this is what we plan on doing. We've got this race running in Red Deer. We're going to use this as a bit of a test bed to learn things, because one of the things that I always realize, we can't please all the people. Right. We want to please as many people as possibly can, but there's always some learnings and some best practices to take away from each event that you conduct.
Sure.
So once we do the post-race assessment as to how we did, we are planning on taking this practice tree national concept to Ontario later this year in 2019.
That's and is there a tentative, I guess, time when you're thinking that that's going to be?
I'm looking sometime in October.
Okay, so after the racing season's over for the most part.
Pretty well, yes.
Yeah. Well,
that would be the only. And one of the things that we did when we looked at this event that we're having in Red Deer is I took a look at all the divisionals that were taking place, all the big buck bracket races in the area, what local swap meets were happening, what local car shows were going on. We looked at every particular event that could possibly be going on at the same time to look for an area that we could plunk or plan and date our event so that we had no conflicts with anybody else. And the date that we picked on March 23rd in Red Deer was exactly that. It was a free weekend.
Yeah.
So we
plan on
doing the same thing in Ontario. But right now I'm trying to get more feedback from several people that still live there.
Yep.
That I know, and hopefully their feedback will point us in the right direction. We'll pick a date and we can make an announcement within the next couple of months.
Well, I will say that if the event in the Toronto area, GTA, is that Grand Toronto?
Yeah, it's called the Greater Toronto Area.
Stems.
Yeah, it goes right from Hamilton, Burlington, right through to the other side of Toronto. I would say, and I could be wrong on this, the Oshawa area, but you're talking about a population of 6 to 8 million people.
Right.
There's a lot of racers that we can draw from. We can also draw from southwestern Ontario and London and Windsor. We can draw from the guys from Montreal and then the Quebec region, the Ottawa area. There's a track in Luskville. There's a lot of activity that's going on in Ontario. Between London Motorsports Park, Cayuga, Toronto Motorsports Park. You guys, Lancaster, Empire. I mean, a lot of the guys that I used to race with when I was racing with my cousin Steve. I've kept in touch with some of these guys, and we'd love to have them come up to somewhere in the Burlington Oakville area. We're thinking, in the GTA area.
Yeah,
and we'd love to have you guys come up and join us.
Well, we'll definitely. I will say, if the event is looks like it's going to be anything like this event that you're throwing here in a couple of weeks, I mean, I can say that I will definitely be there.
Well, you have an open invitation.
And if we never hear from Jason again, we'll know he had a good weekend.
That's right. I've always liked, I don't know, I don't know what it is. I can't say that I've ever done particularly well at any practice tree events, but I've always enjoyed them. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because I suck at driving the top end so much that it's like, hey, I guess you have a chance of doing well since I'm halfway decent on the tree. I don't know. But yeah, they're always fun. And of course, if you're going to take it seriously, and probably the worst thing you could do is go there and say, okay, well, I'm going to, start having cocktails at noon and go into the practice tree race, because that probably doesn't help your consistency at all with regards to reaction times.
Yeah. No, there'll be plenty of time for that on Friday night.
Right.
And afterwards, right? So.
Yeah, so you think for that event you'll probably have it closer to Toronto than you would Niagara Falls?
I would say closer to Niagara Falls, because the Burlington Oakville area is, we're about an hour outside of Toronto, right?
Yep.
So, and that seems to be the central area, the hub. When you go around the lake, when you travel up to Hamilton and you start going eastbound on the QEW or the 401, the Burlington Oakville area seems to be that central area that we could draw a lot of people from southwestern Ontario, like Windsor, which is 3-4 hours away, right?
Yeah.
And we can still draw from, say, Montreal or Ottawa.
Right.
We'd love to have that group come join us too. And one of the things that I do want to share with you is one of the awards that we're giving away at this Practice Tree Nationals is the longest toe.
Do you know of any contenders at the moment?
What's that?
Do you know of any contenders at the moment?
No. I'm hoping in Red Deer, I'm hoping to draw a couple of guys from Montana, Washington area.
Yeah.
Or the Idaho area. We'd love to have them come up and join us. And in fact, what I did was I sent out an invite to all of the Division 6 stock and super stock racers.
Yeah.
We weren't getting a lot of guys on the bottom bulb race. Our pre-entries were a little slow.
Yep.
So I thought, who hits the bottom bulb an awful lot, right? Well, it's the stock, super stock guys.
That's right.
And we're going to allow both a foot pedal and a tranny brake.
Oh.
So if you're accustomed to using the your 2-foot brake and the gas, then you can use the foot pedal. If you want to use the button, you have the button there.
I guess that's really cool as well, the fact that you're really making it a simulator, right? So it's not just walk up to the practice tree and, hey, here's your button to let go of, right? I mean, it's sit down in the chair and, you want to foot brake it, you're foot braking it. If you want to release the button off the steering wheel, you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool, and it's a really good idea, I have to say. And that I have not seen done before. Every other time I've seen a practice tree race, it's like I said, just stand there and let go of the button, the best you can. So that's super neat. Now you're taking pre-entries now.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we opened up the window last Thursday, and in a matter of 6 days now, we've been able to take in well over 70 entries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that could be $1 million race, that could be top bulb, that could be one of the memorial races. The memorial races, the pre-entry is only $25,
yep.
$30 at the door. The top bulb and bottom bulb is $40 pre-entry and $50 at the door.
Okay.
But there's a little bit more invested in that.
Yeah. Now, are these? I'm assuming, I never really thought about it until now. Is this U.S. funds or Canadian funds?
It is Canadian funds.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah. If I were you guys, and you wanted to come over and invest some of your hard-earned American dollars, we'd gladly take them.
Yeah. Well, heck, for us, it's a deal, right? I mean, we're only paying what, 0.65? Is that what the exchange is right now?
It's $1.35. Yeah. So you could come over and your dollar would be $1.35.
Yeah. So that's a great deal, and then you think about the prize packages you put together, and I guess that I kind of want to re-emphasize that all the payouts are guaranteed, all the prizes are guaranteed, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important because people are so accustomed. I should say people. I mean, drag racers are so accustomed to having contingencies. Okay, yes, this payout's going to require this number of entries, or yeah, we think we're going to have this prize package or whatever else. But you have already basically cemented all of these prizes that you've talked about so far.
We haven't announced all the purses for the races because what's happening is as we grow closer to March the 8th, I'm putting together a flyer, and the flyer will finally be posted. I believe we're shooting for March the 1st is the date that we have set.
Yep.
So I can announce all the prize purses.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to know in advance, 23 days before the event, exactly what they're going to be entitled to.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's clearly there's no question about value as far as paying your entry fee and what you could potentially win in return. I mean, it's clearly worth it from that standpoint. And honestly, if at that point someone's not going to, if someone doesn't show up, it's not going to be because of the fact they felt like, oh geez, it's not a good enough return on my investment. They just weren't going to go for whatever reason. So.
Right.
I wish Alberta was closer because I would be there.
Well, hey, listen, if you want to win the longest tow, we'd be more than glad to pay you.
and yeah, I just might.
But with the reach of that and where some of these free entries and stuff are coming from, that's not a slam dunk coming from out here.
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
That is not a slam dunk.
No, it's definitely not a slam dunk for sure. I say you've done derbies. You did a derby in Minnesota, right?
Minnesota, Utah, yeah, Topeka.
Oh, so you've traveled. So
Arkansas.
Going to Alberta is no big deal for you.
It is. It's a very big deal for me. It is, and I'll tell you why. Because getting there would probably be no problem. Getting back would be very challenging.
Yeah, it's about a 4-hour plane ride out of Toronto.
It's about a lifetime detainment with the Border Patrol.
I would say the Canadian Mounties don't like you so much.
Oh, I think it'd be easy to get into Canada. I think getting back would be impossible.
Ah, okay, all right. Well, we won't go there then, or maybe you. We can...
I'm not ruling it out. We just need to plan. We need to plan accordingly.
Okay,
because before, I'm pretty sure that the enhanced license to get a drag car over the border and everything isn't quite going to cut it.
So we're gonna think. We're thinking we need a dinghy and a waterway and.
Well, I was thinking passports. But okay. Sure, if you want to go, the dinghy and a waterway, let's make it hard as possible. Why not? Yeah, that would go over well.
Yeah, I'm sure. So
just hang the drag car off the back and put paddles on the tires. We could drive the car.
There we go.
Over.
We could be like the fastest across whatever waterway we chose, right?
Yeah, but think about. See, we're blowing it though. We're not even thinking full picture because now we've driven part of the way. That's not a tow. We're taking miles off of the opportunity to get longest tow.
That is true. I would say longest boat ride. I would say would it count if we went?
At that point, I think we've got the slam dunk.
I would say what we could do is we could like reset the odometer as we leave the driveway, and instead of just driving right there, we could drive all the way to like Seattle and then backtrack and be like, "See, we win."
That's just all measured off your driver's license, isn't it?
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to use my GPS, and it says
boo. I was trying to game the system here.
In front of it.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you, Jason, if you decide the guys wanted to come out, we could definitely make the arrangement that you get the longest tow.
Okay. I'll talk to the wife, and we'll see what the wife says.
There you go.
Well, I have to say
Take her up to Lake Louise and Banff, and she'll be floored.
If I could, the only issue I have with my wife, I'm sure she would really enjoy it. And you can obviously drive there, but she doesn't like long car rides, and she doesn't like riding in a plane. So that kind of puts me in a tough position, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to work on that.
Right, absolutely. Well, we're certainly looking forward to the events themselves, and especially the first one. And the first event, the date on the first event was March when?
March 22nd, okay. March 23rd.
I thought it was the 22nd and 23rd. I just want to be certain of that before I said it. Now, I guess we haven't talked about Mike Ferstl racing at all. I mean, what are your plans for 2019?
Well, right now we plan on doing our local series in Edmonton. It's called Top Eliminator Edmonton, and the way it works is you have to dial 890 or quicker.
Yep.
A great group of guys. Bob and Gord Eberts put this deal together 10, 11 years ago. My first event in Top Eliminator back in actually when they had just started the series back in 08, 09. I rented up in my Roadster, my super gas Roadster. We just turned the throttle stop off and we let the thing rip.
Yeah.
And we ended up going to the final. I lost the final to a really good racer called, his name was Blue Hayball. He builds a lot of cars for TNT, which is owned by a local bunch of guys here in Alberta.
Okay.
And they build cars in Phoenix. They bought it off of Tommy Phillips, believe it or not. And Trevor Ritchie and Mark Simmons own that company. Anyways, Blue Hayball builds he takes a lot of their cars in rollers and then finishes them up. And he's a really good racer. Anyways, he beat me by 14 thou at that race.
I would say
so that was my first taste of Top Eliminator. I've been hooked ever since.
What will your Roadster?
So we have
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What will your Roadster run all out?
It ran. We got it to go 18s at 170.
That's pretty stout. What motor's in the Roadster?
565 on gas.
Okay. I would say, unfortunately, I will say that that's your pretty typical super gas motor these days, right?
Well, I would say no. Actually, I came back from Vegas last year at the National. I have a good friend that runnered up in super gas and World Points, Aaron Kennard.
Yeah.
I actually bought Aaron's first dragster.
Okay.
He won the Jegs All-Star race with this car. He won 300 other national events and a lot of divisionals. So I hang with Aaron an awful lot at the races when we're in Vegas. Aaron has a '63 Corvette that it came out of Ohio. Ron Erks owned the car.
Okay. And
Aaron missed the World Championship by 10 points.
That hurts.
He went 001 red in the 5th round of the National, and that cost him the series.
Oh.
But he's got a 615-inch APD motor with their latest throttle stop.
Yep.
And their carburetor setup.
Right.
And then he's also got an American dragster in Super Comp.
Yep.
That thing off the stop, those DN9 cylinder heads that APD is building in their 615, it runs 190 miles an hour off the stop now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is just incredible. I can't believe how, super gas and Super Comp has progressed from a performance standpoint over the course of the years. Now, certainly if I was going to build a car, let's call it run a Super Cop dragster, I would definitely say, all right, at this point I'm going to build something that is fast enough to run top dragster too. Just gives you more opportunities to race. But Cripes in top dragster now, 690 is not going to necessarily get you in the show anymore.
No. If you looked at the St. Louis event, the national event that took place last year in October, they had a little bit of problems with weather. After one round of qualifying for top dragster, the bump was 638.
That is just insane. That is
incredible. So I have a Super Comp car that was built for Super Comp.
Yep.
And I raced it in top dragster. We won an NHRA National Open here in 2017.
Oh, you did?
In top dragster, and my car runs 730s. But if I were to go to a major national or a big divisional, I'd never get in the field. So, we do it locally at our home track at Castrol, and if I could squeeze in, at the bottom of the field, that's fine for me.
Yeah.
I have no issues with that. But as far as having a competitive car for top dragster, no, it is not competitive in that. But I can run Super Comp. With 615 that I own now.
I don't think you saw it or maybe heard it, but Chris was shaking his head, looking at me and whispering, "That's crazy," and it is. It's really unbelievable because 730 in the quarter mile is still really fast. And it's amazing that for a sportsman class that 730 is not fast enough to make the bump. That's really just crazy to me.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, I look at these the new TNT cars that are coming out of Trevor and Mark Simmons' shop in Phoenix, and I look at these cars and they're absolutely beautifully detailed. I mean, Trevor's got a car with a Stinnett motor in it. It's got a blower set up on it with 2 carburetors.
Yep.
That thing at will with a soft tune-up will run 650s.
Right. And I know Billy, he built himself a Pro Charger motor last year, and he didn't get many runs on it after he finally got it. Where did that motor come from? I should know this. I think Huntsville built that motor for Billy. But it was crazy. I mean, with the super mild tune-up, barely, overdriving that thing. I mean, I think he went 630s. And it's like, he's like, I haven't even touched it. It's like, if I want to, I easily could get this thing into the 5s. That's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
So now you have a car that is pretty darn reliable, because you don't really have to beat the crud out of it, and super fast, and it's a dragster, so it's easy to work on. I mean, yeah, what a nice situation to be in, really.
Oh yeah. The guys that run our series in Edmonton, Bob and Gord Eberts, they have again, I am not sure of the chassis. I can't remember whether it's a Miller or a Mullis, but it's a longer wheelbase car, I think about 260.
Oh.
And they run a Pro Charger deal in it.
Yep.
They've gone 612 with that deal. It's a Nesbitt deal, right?
Yep.
Or a par motor out of the East Coast. And but the thing's been eating itself up. It hasn't been able to reliably live.
Yep.
But the fact that they've gone 6.0s and 6.12 out on the coast in Mission. See, we run an altitude here in Edmonton. We're at 1,900 feet. So on a good day in the summertime, we're at 5,000 feet corrected.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I have to say, Chris, you probably didn't hear this, but NHRA has actually increased the minimum dial that you can have. So it used to be 6.0. 600 was the minimum, and chassis were certed to 6.00. Well, knowing racers how they are, they drove it to the absolute limit. So the problem is that now you have a car that when it runs 5.999, in theory, that car shouldn't be going that fast because the chassis hasn't been certified as safe for that kind of elapsed time / speed. So NHRA has now changed that to be a 610. And I'm pretty sure, Mike, you might know better than I do. I'm pretty sure I read that they were going to be pretty hardcore about enforcing that rule.
Yes, the way the rule is set up is that they had guys that were going full out after a guy went red against them. There was a guy, he went 589 last year at 252 or something. And these cars are only certified for 6.0. So they had to do something about that minimum. So they raised it to 610. If you run a 609, you're going to be talked to. If you go 599 with a 9, you're going home. They're going to disqualify you and send you home.
And so, to be perfectly...
they don't want anybody going faster than 6.0.
Right. Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I mean, I think that's the way it should be. And, I think overall, I mean, you could still leave the index at 6.0, if you will, but, just basically make the punishment the same. Look, at 599, if you put a 5 up on that first digit, you are being tossed from the race. So go ahead and run your car as fast as you want. If you want to push it to the very limit and dial 601 and you feel safe at 601, that's great. Good for you. But you better not hope a 5 pops up on that scoreboard.
On the topic of NHRA, did you see Tony Schumacher sitting out the... this weekend?
It's I will say it's crazy, actually. I mean, no sponsorship.
Army was with them for 15 years.
Was it 15?
I bet you. Well, it had to be close.
Oh, yeah. I think the exact number was like 17 years or something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not completely. Everything comes to an end at some point in time. But the fact that you have a premier top fuel driver that can't get sponsorship is just really sad. I don't know what it means, honestly. I've read good things overall. I have to say that it's hard for me to really comment just because it's been a long time since I've been to an NHRA national event as a competitor. I've heard good things about the new management. It seems like people in general like the new CEO. But yeah, I mean, the fact is that I don't know. I'm not sure that it's turned around.
Right.
I would say, Mike, what kind of level of participation do you see out at your? I guess your local tracks are. Well, Edmonton is IHRA, right?
No, it's NHRA now.
Oh, it is NHRA now. So when
it was IHRA up until most recently. We ran the Rocky Mountain Nationals there for years.
Yeah.
Starting in '04, it became IHRA. In fact, Bader was up there. He was greeting racers at the gate. I mean, I just thought the world of that. The fact that he was thanking people for showing up, and
right.
He was there for the first couple of years, and then he pulled away. Let the guys do their job. Scooter Pico and Mike Baker were up handling the show. We've had a rash of bad weather for that event, but
yep.
What they've done in Edmonton is the track owner has basically set up a boutique race. So we run some different classes along with all the traditional classes like the super classes. Top dragster, top sportsman.
Yep.
We have we've booked in fuel cars. They bring in some booked in funny cars, nostalgia nitro funny cars. They also have a 690 group here, which is a nitro class that they run. They can only run 690 or slower. Yeah, and it's heads up. So they run that. They also have another class called the International Blown Alcohol Association. So they have a whole bunch of little classes within them, and then we had some pro mod cars for years. Carl Spearing came up and won back in 2007, 2008. I knew Carl from back east fairly well. We used to keep in touch. It was nice to see him do that. But when he got out of racing, basically by that time IHRA had already, the writing was on the wall here.
Yeah.
And they had been talking about going back to NHRA for a while.
Okay.
So I was the first guy to win top dragster on the NHRA side in Castrol in 2017. That was the first year they actually had NHRA come back. And it was a national.
Yep. So, I mean, participation-wise, I mean, from an NHRA standpoint, I mean, how have you seen, how's the participation been up there?
We get cars regardless. I mean, there have been some issues about parking at the track at this event for years. You used to have to park your car 4 days in advance, and guys didn't like that, and you had to do it off-site, and then you
4 days in advance.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I've gone to events where you just drive in, right? You pay you at the gate and away you go. But for some reason they had this bit of a circus where you and I call it a circus. That's what it was.
Right.
They've sort of eliminated that now, so they pretty well streamlined that process. But there are always issues at every track you go
Sure.
to. I mean, whether it's with ownership or management, some guys have stopped coming to the track for certain reasons. They didn't feel they were given their just dues or
right.
whatever. But most of the races now are club races. We have two series, the Top Eliminator Group, which I'm a part of, which is 6 double headers. We run 6 different weekends spread out throughout the course of the year. Each race pays $5,000. We also, in addition to that, last year had a new series start. 2 guys that ran Super Pro and Pro. Those classes were being decimated by our class because everyone was stepping up for the payout.
Sure. Yep.
So they decided to take, we want to come up with an 8th mile race, and it's going to be Super Pro and Pro cars. It doesn't matter. I don't think they have a break on the dial-in, but if you want to jump in, it's 8th mile, and we're going to pay big bucks. So they started this, and in fact, they now rival what we have going on in Top Eliminator Edmonton. They had 61 cars at one of the races on Labor Day weekend last year, and they paid out $5,000. That's
nice. I mean, that's the type of thing that really draws guys to a particular class, right? I mean, I'm sure you remember the days of racing at Lancaster and racing for $300 to win, right? And I will say the payout out here really hasn't progressed for the most part fast enough to account, let's call it, for inflation overall. And if you want to get guys to come out, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, $1,000 is not going to be enough to do it. You start making races that are going to be $5,000 to win. Yeah, I'm going to get off the couch and get my race car, because that's a lot of money. That's
right. Well, if you think about it, there is anywhere from 100 to 150 big buck races. This is the new trend now. Guys are going to be running these big buck races all over the country, and that's what they do. They no longer run a point series at a particular track,
right,
where they live and die by that track, right? They wear the Lancaster badge on their chest,
right,
or the Kiko badge on their chest. No, what is done now is there are guys traveling all over the country where they go from one weekend to another to run these big buck bracket races.
Yep.
And that's what's driving people in. Is there's a lot of people that no longer are interested in, and I stopped running divisionals years ago. I don't run a lot of super gas, super comp anymore. We used to do the most of the Division 6 tour.
Yeah.
I just couldn't understand getting there 2 days in advance.
Did we lose Mike?
Okay, and then try and get home on Sunday night. And get paid. If you won the race, you got $1,000. Like, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I just stopped doing it.
Yeah, and that was me as well. I have to say that, early 2000s, I did a lot of traveling, went to a whole bunch of NHRA races, and like you said, I mean, you're getting there, being a working scum, I guess, like a lot of guys. I mean, I'd leave work at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, and then I'd drive all night to get to the races so I could be there, and first thing Thursday morning to pit and get through, then you get there, and I've told the story on the air before. I remember going to Cecil County and losing 5th round at Cecil County, and they handed me a check for like $150, and I was like, seriously? I mean, I just lost in the quarterfinals. I got $150? I'm like, that was to me when it was like, what am I doing? This is absolutely silly. And I liked racing against the top competition, but at that point I just said, I can't justify this investment from a time and money standpoint anymore. Unfortunately, at the time, mid-2000s, when I said, all right, I'm not doing this anymore, all these big dollar bracket races really didn't exist. It's really been a trend that's kind of started in the last 5 or so years. Now if I were going to travel, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going big dollar bracket race to big dollar bracket race for sure.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot more sense. I mean, we all realize, to go into one of those races, you're racing against a bunch of sharks.
Oh, sure.
These guys have been doing this for years.
Yep.
And, you really have to be on your game to win one of those races.
Yep.
My buddy there, Aaron Kennard, he's a super gas, super comp guy, never bracket raced, didn't do a whole bunch of bracket racing. Well, he jumped into the Fling last year. He won a free entry to one of Kyle and Peter's races in Vegas.
Yep.
He ended up going down to 4 cars. You know what it paid? $40,000. Made his year.
Yeah.
Right? So, these big buck races, if you do get lucky, and sometimes every squirrel finds an acorn.
That's right.
We all do. When it's your day, it's your day. When I won top dragster against our group up there in Edmonton at the Rocky Mountain National NHRA National Open, it was my first Wally in a number of years.
Yep.
But it was my day because, in the final round, I had a trip zip 0 against my opponent, a good friend of mine. And it's 8 o'clock at night. The sun's in behind the tree. I've got my shield on. I just basically got lucky.
Right.
And, it could have been that close to be going red.
Yep.
It was my day, and that weekend I was hitting the tree. I felt extremely comfortable, and so when it's your day, it's your day.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, here he was, losing in the semis and making $40,000. I mean, for guys like us, that's more than
huge.
your racing budget for the entire year.
That's huge. I mean, you look at Jeff Verde, who basically dragged his Pontiac Firebird from the East Coast to Vegas a couple years ago. He won the million on an open trailer, okay, with a pickup.
I remember
truck.
that.
Then he came back and he won Bristol, and he won another $1 million race. So that year, he must have made, I would say it was closer to $600,000. Like, that is a career.
Right.
He could have just, you know what, sold everything, sold the truck, trailer, and the car, and just gone and enjoyed himself. Right? But he's still racing today. He's still got the drive. He still wants to race. He's a part of our This Is Bracket Racing Elite group.
Okay.
And the guy is just as hungry as ever before.
Well, I hope I will say that this is Bracket Racing Group. I've talked to Luke about coming on the show, so hopefully we'll be able to have Luke come on the show in the near future and be a guest and kind of talk about. He did a whole series. I think he started it really last off season when he started talking about practice and on the practicing tree and stuff like that, and it became very popular. Lots and lots of followers were. Listening what he had to say, obviously because he's been very successful. And I hope that we can have him on and talk about some of the things that they do. And This Is Bracket Racing Elite group for sure. Mike, we've certainly taken up all of an hour. We're over an hour at this point. Certainly appreciate you coming on the show. I guess before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to thank or sponsors that you got to mention or anything like that?
Well, I got to thank a couple people, and I thank you for the opportunity to do that. First of all, I want to thank my wife, who's been there in my corner for so many years throughout our entire marriage. We've now been married. We're going to be 30 years married here next year, and through thick and thin, she's come up to the racetrack. She supported me through good times and bad times, on our days where we just this event win that we had in 2017 was just phenomenal. She was right there in my corner. She's always there to support me, so I really have to thank my wife Tracy for being there and understanding what it's like to be a drag racing nut.
Right.
Because I am a fanatic.
Yep.
I take the sport extremely seriously. I got to thank, someone who started me way back when I was just a kid and took me to Cayuga and Niagara for the very first time, and that's my Uncle Carl. He's Steve's dad, Steve Ferstl. I'm sure you guys know Steve.
Yep.
He was track champion at Lancaster a number of years ago in their Quick 8 or Quick 16 program.
Yep.
I got to thank my cousin for the talks that we have. We talk all the time. But I do have some people that I want to thank monetarily. Certainly, I get a lot of help from a couple that own a company called Bushmaster, and they also are now building harnesses, Elite belts. They have come on board as one of our sponsors on the Practice Tree Nationals. But Tom and Kathy Mahedin, they're pro mod racers. They have been for many, many years. They have taken a shine to both Tracy and myself, and we really enjoy their company, and we're looking forward to having them with us. So I got to thank Bushmaster and Elite Belts for being in there in the corner for us. I got to thank BP Fuels. I have to thank Chris Lindsay at Lindsay Racing Products in Phoenix, Arizona. Chris built all the wheels for our car. The black wheels, the B-lock, double B-lock wheels. I got to thank Aaron Kennard. There's another guy that spent an awful lot of time with me. I got a chance to buy a really good car, and I have to say that, with all the equipment that I have, he's been in my corner an awful lot, just as a personal supporter.
Yeah.
So whenever I go to the events, I've been able to spend time with Aaron and his buddies. Robert Neighbors, another guy, great guy out of Division 7, good super gas racers. These guys are all, one thing I've learned is I don't know everything there is to know, and I was never a mechanic.
Yep.
I'm not the type of guy that truly understands all the facets of engine building and tuning these motors. But one of the things that I've been able to do is to seek out help.
Sure.
And to learn from those people that are in the know.
Right.
And both Aaron and Robert Neighbor are good friends. And I got to thank Luke Bagacki. because Luke has really opened my eyes. I've only been a part of his group for a little over a month now with This is Brown Racing Elite, but if you ever got the opportunity to make an investment in your racing program, do it with Luke's group, because he has so much going on with that group. I think it's really going to benefit our program this year.
I will say you're selling it well. You made me raise my eyebrows.
That's a shining endorsement.
That is a pretty shining endorsement. I will say that I really enjoyed the practice tree. I guess we'll call it practice tree or challenge that he did last winter. And
well, he's going to be doing it again this year on a week this Monday. We're starting again as a group, and he's opened it up to the public to actually participate on Facebook.
Oh.
So he's gonna come on board, and just recently, it's himself and Kevin Brannon, and they've just recently signed up Justin Lamb, Super Stock World Champion, to come on just to be able to lead assistance to the bottom bulb guys.
Oh, we'll definitely have to get those guys on soon, because I'm definitely intrigued for sure.
Right.
And as you mentioned, Mike, there's no drag racer out there that I know of that's doing it all on their own. It's always some type of support, even if it's moral support, from the wife, right? I mean, anyone who's married knows that wives make sacrifices when they're married to racers. So it's you can't just go out there and do it by yourself. And it sounds like you got a pretty good team of people overall that have helped you along the way. And it's nice to hear, and give an opportunity to shout out to them and say thanks. Well, anything else before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank you both you guys for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of your group, and it's always nice to be able to talk to folks that I remember your dad when he was racing your car.
Yep.
At Lancaster many years ago. So it's always nice to chat with people that we've run into before. Chris is great to be able to make a new contact, a new friend. Certainly appreciate your support and having me on, and allowing me the time to share a little bit about what we're doing out west here, because it's funny how different parts of the country are doing different things, and you don't really understand, or you don't really truly value what's going on out there until you actually get a chance to spend some time with folks from other parts of the country, because there's lots to learn.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed it enough that you'd be willing to come back on. We'd certainly love to hear how the Practice Tree Nationals go down, and again we haven't even talked about really, other than you kind of being from Ontario, what your racing history. I mean. You have an interesting picture where you have the picture of the Nova that you had, that you kind of started off with, and you even said to yourself, if you would have told me one day that I would have progressed from the Nova to the Roadster and the Dragster, that you never would have believed it, right? And that's the type of thing that we love to hear about. How did you get to the point that you're at in your racing career right now? And like I said, we didn't touch on that at all.
And that's fun. That's for another day. I'm really excited about this Practice Tree Challenge and to talk about that, and I thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity.
Hey, we appreciate it, Mike.
For sure, Mike. Take care.
All right, guys. Well, thanks very much. And listen, don't forget, you got an open invitation to come to Red Deer.
Okay. I'll remember that. I'll start working on the wife tonight when I get home.
We'll start looking at flight plans.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
We'll see you later. Thanks, Mike. There goes. I'm just one of the most unique characters we've had on the show. I mean, that was just the ideas and some of the stuff that we talked about before the show went live. Some of the stuff that he was kicking around, the way that he looks at drag racing, and it's a remarkable mind right there. And we really didn't get a chance to pick a whole lot of it. We talked about a couple of events,
right?
Basically over the course of an hour. There's so much more, that we could dive into.
Yeah, it's funny. I will say that by the time we got done talking about the Practice Tree events, it was already 7:45, and it's like, okay, we got to move this along. This is obviously not going to leave us a lot of time to talk about history. And I didn't realize that Mike had spent so much time in the hospitality industry, and really it shows. I mean, he's a planner, right? He's sat down and tried to think all these things out, and all right, how do I host an event?
Right. And boy, he's got a plan.
Right.
And
right.
It's gonna come around. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good a couple times this year with the sounds of things.
Oh yeah. I mean, cripes. 70 pre-entries already for the first race. That's gonna be. I'm sure I'm not going to be able to get there, even though I would like to go. But I guess that's the thing. It's like, man, I would
just like to pick his mind in terms of the marketing side of things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that combination of hospitality service, drag racing, all of those different pieces coming together in one project would just be. I was just in awe listening to some of the parts and pieces of the conversation as it played through. But I mean, we talked that he's a great super gas and super comp racer, Mike Ferstl. You're gonna have to take our word for it,
right? Because we haven't talked about it.
We didn't touch on that in any way. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot of additional stuff to delve into on the next appearance, and by then, who knows what will he have put together for those $2 million races too? I mean.
It's a testament, like you said, just from a marketing standpoint, how talented he is. I mean, so here's a guy that obviously he's been a racer for a long time and he's traveled a lot, so he knows a lot of people, but never put together a practice tree national event like he has, right? And already he has a ton of sponsors and a ton of prizes and everything else. So I mean, from that standpoint, he's clearly selling this the right way to partners. So. Yeah, be interested to definitely hear how this all goes down.
For sure. But all things considered, I think that's going to do it for us here. As we say every time, from the North Park building, number 57 is in the books. We'll see you back here again in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Unless I'm going to be around 2 weeks.
Unless you want to go next week.
2 weeks is good.
2 weeks is good. So we'll make it in 2 weeks. 31st lap will be on next week. We'll be talking circle track racing there coming up Monday. Crash Course Podcast will be on the air if you're looking for some combative motorsports type conversation. In the meantime, if you're looking to wait just for the drag racing stuff, it'll be 2 weeks. We will see you then.
This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.